So good afternoon and welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this special webinar from the field 40 years of growth, partnership, and looking ahead. We're really glad you're here, and we're especially grateful to our donors, to our supporters, to our friends and members, and to everyone who has been part of Rayjon's journey over the past years, and to our new supporters. Just a quick note, so this session is being recorded, and so you will be able to find it later on our website if you'd like to revisit it or share with others. This is a particularly meaningful episode for us as we are joined by longtime Rayjon members as we celebrate Rayjon's 40th anniversary and reflect on our journey so far, as well as what lies ahead. So welcome everyone, and thank you everyone for joining today. So to begin with, I will briefly go back to where it all started, and then I'm going to have some questions for our panelists so they can share their perspective, their experience with Rayjon, and also answer some of the questions you may have. So in January 1986, Ray Werzikowski and John Barnfield led their first Haitian experience trip, which marked the beginning of Rayjon's work in Haiti. Shortly after, in 1987, work began for 3 schools in Saint-Marc. By 1989, a formal partnership was formed with Plenty Canada, expanding programming in Saint-Marc with a focus on healthcare and education. These early steps laid the foundation for what would become a long-term commitment to partnership and community-driven development, both in Haiti and the Dominican Republic. Some early milestones. So in the year that follows, a number of important milestones helped shape Rayjon's growth. In 1993, the first walk took place in Pinson. I think Joanna and other of our members know very well this walk. A little bit more about what it means, which ultimately led to the construction of a new school. Following that, Rayjon also supported the development of a secondary school in Barbe, the St. Patrick Secondary School. Around 1990, the first partnership relationship were established with what we call today the CNUC, the Center for Nutrition and Education for Women and Children in north of Haiti in Cap Haitian. In 1998, the Women's Federation in Saint-Marc was inaugurated, marking the first legally recognized women's group of its kind in Haiti. So hooray to that. The same year, adult literacy classes also began in Saint-Marc, expanding access to education for adults in the community. These are just some of the few examples that of the work that evolved in those early decades, always in partnership with the communities. As you know, together we focus on empowering women through microcredit, life skill classes, and community-led initiatives like the Breadfood program that is led by the Haitian Women Federation. We focus on health, including nutrition program, preschool support, mobile clinics in underserved areas like in the Dominican Republic, education from early childhood program to tuition support and community support. You are also aware of our vision program, so the Eyeglass program that reaches thousands across Latin America and the Caribbean. So for 40 years, community voices have guided every step, and they continue to shape Rayjon's work and Rayjon's future. So what's next? I won't spend too much time on that because, as I said, our panelists will bring those reflections to life through their own experiences and perspective. But I still wanted to focus that how at the heart of Rayjon's work going forward and throughout our history are strong, respectful partnership with local organizations and communities. We continue to believe deeply in education as a key to opportunity, both for children and adults, and in the importance of empowering women. which remains central to many of the programs we support. So with that in mind, I'm looking forward to hearing from our panelists about where we've been and where we're going together. I will briefly introduce today's panelist. So Debbie Austin. So Debbie became involved in Rayjon formally in 2020 as a board member initially, then program directors, and is currently the chairperson of Rayjon. Debbie has observed its growth from a charitable focus to an organization committed to locally driven, community-based development initiatives in a partnership models in Haiti and in the Dominican Republic. Debbie has participated in several trips in Haiti and the Dominican Republic, and she was lastly in November in Haiti and the Dominican Republic, visiting our partners with Dr. Glenn Madison. So welcome, Debbie. We're really happy to have you here with us today.
Thank you.
Dr. Glenn has been involved with Rayjon probably from the very beginning. So since the very beginning in 1986, so one of the really longest time member of Rayjon. We're excited to have you here, serving as a medical advisor alongside Ray and John. Over the year, Glenn has made numerous trips to Haiti, initially focused on providing medical care and diagnosing conditions, including in the aftermath of the earthquake. In more recent years, he continues his involvement as board member, taking part in monitoring and partnership trips. And as I said, lastly, in November, this past November with Debbie and Allison as well in Haiti and the Dominican Republic. So welcome, Glenn, as well. We're really happy to have you with us today.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Joanna Giresi is past a trip leader and longtime volunteer. Joanna has been involved with Rayjon as well for many, many years, so for more than 20 years. First as a participant on awareness trips to the Dominican Republic and Haiti, and as a trip leader. She has supported fundraising, outreach, and youth engagement effort, led multiple awareness trips to Haiti, and remained passionate advocate for the people and the community she came to know through Rayjon's work. So welcome you all today. I will probably pin you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, but I want to pin you because what is next is I will have a few questions for you, and I would like for everyone to be able to see you. And then just so everyone know, if you have questions, you can put your questions in the chat box or raise your hands, or there is also going to be some time at the end for your questions. So enough of me talking. Again, so welcome everyone. Welcome Debbie, Glenn, and Joanna with us today. I think I want to start with a question for Debbie, a little bit looking back over the 40 years of Rayjon, and if you can tell us a little bit about how Rayjon's program have evolved in response to community needs over those past 40 years.
Sure. In the first 20 years of Rayjon or thereabouts, I was an observer because I wasn't a part of the organization, but I was perhaps a close observer because I was a law student in the beginning in Ray Wurzakowski's law firm, and I watched and listened to many of the discussions as they went on their first trip, kind of what the motivations were, the idea of being so grateful for all that we have in Canada and really wanting to share and move towards a more just world. I mean, just in whatever way they as Canadians could help where help was needed most. So it was a learning curve, it seemed to me at the beginning. And it started with bringing people to Haiti to build relationships and to see where they could fit in and what might be helpful without really any expertise or background in international development or international cooperation. So What I think by the time I became involved, we were an organization that was supported by the Canadian government at the time, CETA funding, and significant amounts of money, but that funded and supported significant community development initiatives in St. Mark, education, healthcare, women's program, women's empowerment, alpha literacy, and various specific things. But at that time, I would say what I could observe was that the process was consultative with the community, but the decision making was in Canada, in part because you had to fit into what the Canadian government's priorities were to get the kind of funding that we were relying on, and because of even just the attitudes or approach that the organization had, and that perhaps existed more broadly in that field. So there was then an understanding, first of all, the value of sustainability, but also that decision making is not best to be done from a Canadian perspective, but to really be informed by local decision making, local priorities. And how do you do that? So that's the evolution that we came to by really supporting and embracing a vision and mission statement that clearly identifies that we are committed to, first of all, a partnership model, which is a respectful model. And it's built on local decision making and local priorities. And so that shift was challenging for us to implement, but I have to say we're very proud to be committed to that and to have made the change. That doesn't mean that we don't have, financial accountability or due diligence as a Canadian organization, but we're a partner, and that has really, I think, been significant in both empowering our local partners, but also to have good success. I know even you, Pierre, are playing an important role right now in the process of training and support for local monitoring and evaluation skills and mechanisms to strengthen our partners' skills and systems that support their local planning and evaluation. And that's in parallel, obviously, to what they're doing and what we're doing, so that we're doing it together as partners. Anyway, a shift that took a long time, but I'm proud that we have achieved that and that we're doing that in all of the programs that we're supporting. But I've just focused on St. Mark because it's, I suppose it was the first successful model. I think that has really been achieving great results in difficult circumstances and times and crises, right?
Especially today, of course, with
Right.
going on in the region. Yeah.
But who would know best? Not us, from a Canadian perspective, and that's reinforced to us all the time.
So I like how you put this consultation versus decision making. So before it
That's
was
right.
consultation and then it became decision making. I imagine 40 years ago, most organization probably would follow, used to follow a similar model. And then now we're all shifting that is more sustainable, listening, prioritizing local voices. Um, so thank you. I like how you put this together. You definitely said it much better than I would have. So thank you.
Well, no, just
Information. But I also know that another important role, if you want, in Rayjon's work has been the role of volunteers. So you spoke about bringing people to Haiti, and I know that there's always been a lot of volunteers traveling to Haiti, to the Dominican Republic, but also in Sarnia, a lot of work is made with the help of volunteers. So Joanna, maybe you can help us understand a little bit about how central to Rayjon's work are volunteers. So, what role they played over the years, and how have they helped shape Rayjon's relationships and key initiatives, maybe?
Well, you took my the words there that I had kind of put together, that volunteers have been central to Rayjon's mission. And from my experience, I found that our volunteers kind of came in three categories. They were volunteers were engaged post awareness trip, and then found a new awareness, and they wanted to put their knowledge into action. And so I think they were some of our key volunteers over the last 40 years. I know that that's what it was, that experience, my first experience in 2003 with Ben, that got me engaged with the organization. And then I think other volunteers who maybe were a little bit more on the peripheral that you could count on in assisting in unique roles, were people who heard a story and it touched them in some way. So they never had an experience, but somehow a story that was shared with them, they got involved with Rayjon. And then they just continued to show up, because I think slowly they formed relationships with some of the key people in Rayjon, and it was through relationship building that kept them engaged in, in usually in fundraising efforts. And I would say, and maybe other people who became engaged were people who had a strong sense of social justice, but maybe didn't find anything on a local level and decided, I feel strongly about assisting people in the developing world, and maybe I can get involved with this outreach in some way. So I have found over the years in my involvement, people kind of fell in those three categories. I think where the real volunteers, the active volunteers, were usually in fundraising efforts. I know we had our annual fall fair that Diane McKillican oversaw, and she had a large group of volunteers to make that thing happen. And it usually took about 8-9 months to actually organize. And the day of, usually you would bring in some extra people. The DeGroote's plant sale that we just completed 2 weekends ago requires a great group of volunteers. The pasta dinners we used to have at the Donny Club, the curling event at the Sarnia Golf and Curling Club. And what was wonderful about it is you're involving the larger community, and some of these volunteers just played small roles, but without them, I don't think some of these fundraising events could really have taken place. Also, when I was really involved, this was pre-COVID, when awareness trips were still taking place. There were a small group of volunteers, but the key one, I would say, was Maggie Barnfield herself, and doing outreach. She would regularly go to the schools. I also want to give a shout out to Mark Irwin, who was who taught the junior grades in one of our local elementary schools. And she talked about Rayjon. Marg is the daughter of Ray Wierzakowski. So she felt passionate about things and brought that passion with her to the classroom. And years later, those students, when they became high school students, it was something that was shared when they were in a junior classroom. Felt inspired to participate on an awareness trip. So I love that kind of full circle thing. Also, there were, over the years, work groups, and of course, the eyeglass trips continue. And none of these trips could have taken place without a group of volunteers that actually made it possible for those trips to actually take place. Whether it was the collection of eyeglass, the cleaning of the eyeglass, looking at what the different prescriptions were, and also the work groups. Those were, there was a lot of people active with that in the early stages of Rayjon. And then, of course, where I became the most involved with the awareness trips. And so, awareness trips could not have been possible if it wasn't for the volunteers over the years. John Barnfield, Ben McKillican, Bryce McGarvey, myself, and then, of course, we could never take on those leadership roles. Oh, and Diane McKellican, of course, for Haiti. So none of those trips could have taken place without volunteers, acting in a co-leadership role. So in the early stages, there was a lot of volunteers that assisted in the collection of goods. So years ago, we used to bring hockey bags full of stuff. And as to reiterate what Debbie was saying, we were more collaborative, and we no longer started bringing things anymore. We brought money to support programs, and there was less about charitable giving and more about empowering our partners in the developing world to make things possible so that they could do things. So, those are some of the key things with regards to volunteers and how they became engaged, because frankly, they're the heart and soul of Rayjon from my point of view. So,
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that was it. It was just my dog barked. I think she wants to go ahead.
She wants to say something. I like how you of course put together volunteers and trips, because this is also part of my next question, because I know that same as volunteers, also the trips have always been part of Rayjon's story. Like without the trips, Rayjon wouldn't be Rayjon. So in your view, so I joined Rayjon maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I know that we've called trips in different ways. And so I know that trips have evolved from 40 years ago to today. I want to say maybe they used to be awareness trips before, and then we changed a little bit the way we call them. So from awareness to monitoring trip to now partnership trips. So can you tell us maybe a little bit also about how those trips have changed, and how the purpose of these trips also change, and what role do they play today? Because I know that especially now, unfortunately, there's not a lot of trips that are possible. Not a lot of volunteers are willing or able to travel. So if you can also maybe tell us a little bit more about this, please.
Yes, I'll compare it to the first awareness trip I went with Ben, and it was a significant difference in the trip experience between the Dominican Republic, and the following year I went with Diane to Haiti. DR came about because there was a period of time that Haiti was not safe to travel with. And rather than letting the awareness experience that it was impossible to go, the Dominican Republic. I don't have a full understanding. I was not part of the organization. But it was a natural, I think, follow-up to Rayjon, and I think over time with Ben's involvement, that it was less about just awareness, and that's where the project in the DR, the early stages of that came about. So we would travel to the DR, and we would see projects that were on the ground, and Ben had established relationships with different organizations in the DR. We put a lot of mileage on that bus, going from place to place, and experienced some really dynamic, engaged community members in the DR, dealing with malnutrition, education, boys, getting them off the street. So boys' homes, girls' homes. We also had an opportunity to visit a hospital that helped nurse the people with leprosy, and also a seniors home, and how the DR dealt with seniors. Many of these seniors did not have family members that could take care of them. So there were projects, sometimes 2, 3 a day. By the end of the day, it was exhausting. There was lots of travel time, but dynamic, engaging, and almost every opportunity Ben built in that the young people on the awareness trip could engage with other young Dominicans, and the relationships would form, and all of a sudden, that thinking of an us and them just over the course of the week, that just disappeared. It was all about the we. Haiti was very different, and the following year when I attended with Diane, this was when we had Jadun, who was our director in Haiti. She lived in Canada, but Jadun organized our visits, and we predominantly visited, of course, the projects that Rayjon was directly involved with. When she was no longer part of the organization, the awareness trips shifted. And I think there was a thinking of a poverty awareness trip, and we dropped the word poverty out of that. And in the final years, I was the final, I did 7 awareness trips, with 2 with John and then 5 myself. And I looked at it more of awareness and cultural building, and wanted to get away from the whole idea, not saying that it was, but that the idea of poverty tourism, that I know in the last couple of trips that I've done, especially the one where I was impacted by a fall, and I shifted my thinking. We put a lot of focus on engaging community members to come and participate on the awareness trip, particularly reaching out to young people in our local high schools. But I found I had a completely shift of thinking, less about putting a lot of energy on our trip participant and looking at whether our trip participants were actually worthy of the experience that our partners in Haiti, the time and energy that they put into hosting us and showing us and sharing their experiences with us. I had a shift of thinking that I knew that in my trip preparations that our young people and our adults that participated, they needed to step up and be prepared to make a shift in their thinking. So a lot of my experiences at the end of the day was putting a mirror up to ourselves about what happened today that shifts our thinking, that shifts our bias, that shifts our small-mindedness. So I found over the course of my last couple of awareness trips, there was just a shift in focus from my first experience. All of it good, all of it amazing. But I think we have to grow from each learned experience. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And I think this also reflects a lot of what Debbie was saying earlier about how also the programs have changed, and how the approach that Rayjon used to have with our partners and with the communities changed as well over the years. So the relationship changed, the trips purposes changed as well. So that's really interesting. So I guess my next question is for you, Glenn. So thinking about all those different experiences, all those trips, and how they have evolved, in what way do you think that these experiences shaped Rayjon's identity and approach to global partnership today?
So I guess piggybacking what's already been said, and going back personally to the beginning, it's almost embarrassing where we were at, because it was a very, they use the term white savior syndrome, where we're going to go down, we know more than you do. Here's what we're going to do for you. Very patriarchal and paternalistic, and and by the way, this was my own personal. I'm embarrassed to say that I was involved in that. I acted in that way. And for example, I would go down there and have these clinics and just give antibiotics and medications, which had very little long-standing effect. And we kind of gradually realized that, this wasn't the right way. the way is to work with the people and also preventative health, vaccinations, hygiene, nutrition, but it took us a while to get there. And I think I don't know whether it was you, Pierre, but that was the kind of the thinking. I mean, it wasn't just Rayjon, but I think there were very few NGOs that were sort of ahead of the curve and were listening to the people themselves. And so it's amazing the progress. I'm very proud of the progress that we've made since then. I mean, just the sort of the term that we now have partnership trips for monitoring. It's just like a word, but it's very paternalistic. We're going to monitor it. We're going to go down and check on you. And that was, but it took us 40 years, 30 years to make that shift. And so the fact that we have incredible managers who now understand that kind of they're in charge and we're just there to sort of listen to what and they have now empowered the people that run their programs. I mean, the classic example that everybody's talking about is the women's program in St. Mark. I mean, that's just the biggest success ever. I mean, it's we're all very proud of that. But there have been other programs as well that have done well. We look at what's Escala in the DR. I mean, and that's the time where we're listening to the people. And what people need is they need documentation, they need passports, and so we're helping move that forward. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like how if you want, we're talking about the comparison between the white savior syndrome versus locally led development. Anything that so now we're definitely shifting towards everything that is more locally led and grassroots programs and listening to the voice of our partners and be there as listeners rather than observers or rather than decision makers. And so I'm thinking, I know that so Joanna just spoke about when Judon was leading, I guess, the programs in Haiti, and so many times she also influenced a lot of some of the work that was done in Haiti, and how to involve and how to empower local populations. And I'm thinking, is there a moment that you can think about, you, Glenn, or Debbie, or Joanna, when listening to partners led to meaningful change?
Well, one example, I think, there's many actually, but listening to Andre and Cap-Haïtien and talking about the importance of collaborating with Combat Santé, which was a very successful, very well-run NGO, and the fact that we developed a relationship with them and their people, and we learned a lot from them. And we're in the same area, we're kind of doing the same sort of things. So that's and that didn't come from us, I don't believe. I think that came from Andre, who's our manager in Cap-Haïtien. So yeah.
I wonder the adult literacy was something that wasn't anything I was aware of in my early trip experiences, but seeing a woman and a man be able to write their name, I was just profound to witness that and how proud they were. I know on the last few awareness trips that I was on, and they couldn't wait to have us come and visit and show their accomplishments. So I don't know, Debbie, how long has that been running now?
Oh, many, many years. But what has, I think, evolved is the kind of the breadth of the alpha literacy program. So it's a 4-year program that people are able to take advantage of, and people do take advantage. That 4th year is that fourth year is really focused then on sort of business and development focus, so that it's implementation of some of the alpha literacy skills into business and other areas of of engagement in civil society in Haiti. Now, what we're very proud of is that the alpha literacy curriculum and the booklets that are used have now been authored by and adapted by our own people. So the alpha literacy director, Monsieur Lecner, and their team have adapted the curriculum to be very focused on context, to the Artibonite context and to the context that that is also helpful in Cap Haitian. So they're very proud. But again, it's a step of, I guess, progress and independence, and that program is again an example of partnership. We as a funding partner, they as an implementing but also creating program and partnering with the Women's Federation, who help to provide locales and support, so that it's a partnership within a partnership that is working really effectively. I just wanted to give one example that's an answer to your question about something that has come from our partner as a concept or an idea that we have supported that would never have been something that we would have thought of, right? Sort of an example of how our a local partner has come up with an idea that is really important. And I'll give you a Women's Federation example, and that is the decision on their part to design and implement anti-gang strategies for youth, like youth programming specifically, because they themselves identify the risk of the allure of gangs and the allure to young people being vulnerable to that when opportunities are so limited and things are tough. So they have implemented a strategy that we obviously wholeheartedly support, that is really helping, that is, gathering youth and something that is entirely from the context of Haiti, and something that we could never have designed from where we sit and stand, right? But really critically important initiative to show how valuable that leadership, that local decision making is, and local implementation. And that our job is to support, to ask questions, to do our due diligence, but also to celebrate that there is that local strength in critical thinking and identifying need and matching and developing a program to meet that need. Obviously, then there's monitoring and evaluation processes locally and from our perspective that continue with it. But I just think that's kind of an example of something that is, speaks to something that we in Canada could never decide for and should never try, right?
Yeah. Yep.
No, I like all these examples that you shared from partnering with other local organizations like Comité Santé in Cap Haitian, the role of alpha education, adult alpha education, youth youth support to take them out of the street. These are all good examples that show also a little bit the breadth of Rayjon. We like there's so much that Rayjon supports and listen to. We're open to listening to our communities as long as it as long as it's in line with our values, but we're open to listening and to adapt to what they believe is the best for their communities. So this is definitely something that I guess makes Rayjon proud, for sure. And so back to those community-led initiatives, Debbie, maybe, how do you see community-led initiatives, innovation, youth leadership shaping Rayjon's next chapter?
So I think we just double down on our commitment to supporting local decision making and leadership, and trying to support with skills, really strong communication. One of the, again, looking at the past to where we are now and where we're headed, I look back at how organizations, which we used to call NGOs, but organizations who were aiming to do good from the international perspective, operated in silos as well. And just from my perspective, partnerships of all kinds, are partnerships with other organizations that are like-minded and like common priorities and goals, who we can work well with each other. In other words, working alone, as many organizations did, this is what we do. We in Rayjon do X or Y. No, we are better when we work respectfully with each other in ways that, where we have crossover, that is with funding partners, with partners who are implementing, with teaching, with learning, and then with our partners within country. I give the example too of Renault, who is our lead in the St. Mark region, having had some training with the Trees That Feed organization. And that's the organization that really brought training. And so we started with, they did some training sessions with women in the St. Mark region, and that evolved into something that the Women's Federation, which was, a civil organization, which is, obviously a democratic organization in a country that doesn't have a functioning democracy. But they really took to that and saw how that could be an income generating resource for them. And so for us, it's working with these partners and supporting our supporting the women's federations work with that organization. Just as an example, is that we can all do better when we are open to working with each other and to learn from each other, sharing resources, sharing skills, sharing. And I see that as something that has really opened our eyes to doing better. We have turned away from seeking Canadian government funding because what we learned from that perspective was that took us away from local decision making, local planning, because you had to fit into, at least we found in our years of being involved with that kind of funding, even though it could be very lucrative funding, we would rather have less money and more decision-making control, frankly, because it isn't about the money as much as it is about doing what we do well, right? And so that was a lesson for us. And maybe I haven't answered your question and have gone off on my own little tangent. Sorry. I'll maybe stop.
Oh no, that's definitely answers the question. I think we a little bit answered this question also with the previous conversations we had before, the role of community-led and how it is important to be able to listen, and so that Rayjon's work in the future is actually reflects what is the actual needs versus what we think the needs should be. So I guess maybe I'm thinking about, I don't know if it was Debbie or Glenn earlier, you were talking about the importance of sustainability, which is probably what the organizations, I guess, today is our focus to
Right.
think, go towards something that is more sustainable. So this is maybe a question. This is a question for Glenn. Maybe we touched on this already, and it can seem like a um, straightforward question, but I still want to see your perspective on why sustainability in leadership, in program, and in partnership is so important moving forward.
Well, it's interesting to reflect that how resilient Rayjon has been. I mean, we've lost our two founders.
Mhm.
We've lost a huge grant from the government, but yet we keep on going. And I think we're actually stronger today than we've ever been, which, you would think, well, why is that? And the fact that we have our partners in the DR and in the two areas in Haiti are very, very strong. Clearly, we have to. I mean, if you look around and on this, we're not getting any younger, and we need the youth. But we have Allison, and we have people like Marlo, who is just phenomenal volunteer coordinator, and there's other young people coming up, and that's the future. And hopefully, they'll kind of feel that energy that we have, and we can keep on going. I mean, there have been times where especially when we lost the government funding, we thought, okay, this is it. And and when we lost John, he's been there our entire time. He's been Rayjon, and but yet we keep on going. And I'm pretty sure John knew that in his final days that we were strong, and I'm sure that helped him find peace. Frankly, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I think I mean it is important as you mentioned youth, but also Debbie mentioned earlier, somehow also monitoring and evaluation that also happens from the ground, understanding the local needs, the local priorities, making sure that every different aspect of life. So we have education, we have health, we have um, social justice, we have agriculture, some programs, we have water. So there's a lot of elements that come together in the programs that help also build this kind of feeling of trying to be sustainable and to respond to some of different variety of needs of the communities that we work with. I don't know if anyone else also had anything else they wanted to add.
Well, just on that point, Piera, it's kind of complicated because what we do in the Dominican Republic is very different from what we support in Haiti, and that's been an evolution, basically a response to the need of the communities that we're working with. For example, the need of persons of Haitian descent who live in the Dominican Republic to avoid, roundup and deportation to a country where generations of their family haven't lived because of a change in the law that retroactively took away birthright citizenship, so that generations who'd been born in the Dominican, spoke Spanish, didn't have any connection to Haiti anymore, that those folks are being rounded up, even mothers who just delivered babies being put on a bus and dumped at, on the other side of the border in Haiti and being left in dire straits. So the support that we give there is to documentation, to legal assistance for people to focus on their legal rights, and to assist them in getting documentation. That's very different than what we do in Haiti. And I think that so for us, we don't ever pretend to be an expert in everything, but we try to support the competent meeting of the priorities that our partners have identified as most important to them. So what's hard now in Haiti, of course, is that we can't visit. We've stopped bringing students altogether. We have no more high school trips. We used to have college groups going to Haiti and the Dominican Republic as well. So we've sort of stopped all of those more formal programs, and we now just are aiming to sort of put our toe in the water with the partnerships trips again, where we're bringing groups of basically adults, but not that we would foreclose a student coming with a parent or an adult mentor of some kind, in a good way. But that's all we're doing to bring people, which is very different from, I think, what the early years were of Rayjon. And I don't know how that impacts ultimately the degree of support that we will have in the long term, because trips were important in the sense that people would go on a trip and would come back and say, I have a perspective I didn't have before, and I want to help. Like I now have a different perspective on my own problems in my Canadian life, and I want to be part of global justice in some way,
Yeah.
Anyway.
I just wanted to make a point too, Pira. I think in order for there to be sustainability in Rayjon, is I don't think 40 years ago the founders ever could have imagined the current state of politics or the difficulties on the ground currently in Haiti. So I think in order to remain sustainable, we have to always be ready to pivot, to change, to adapt to even political situations, because the political situations eventually affect the people on the ground. And I think if we're going to remain sustainable, we have to have the capacity within the organization to be prepared to switch up any situation that's going to present themselves. Because I think the last few years, us that things like COVID, unrest, government instability, all of these things have become a reality. And I think, I think we always have to be prepared to pivot and always make sure that we have the capacity to do that.
Yeah. No, I like how you mentioned this, because it reminds me one of our last from the field. We had our partners from CEMARC join, and there was who was explaining how, despite the difficult situation, so for example, some of the women are not able to go to their market where they used to go before. So now it's not like they're not working anymore. They just readapt. So they change strategy and they adapt. So this is exactly what you're saying. So how to be able to changing strategy and to adapt to all the situation, and make sure that you can evolve around it. So yeah, so that's a good point. I think most of my strong important questions are done now, but I want to hear from you just a little bit about maybe the three of you, if you can think about what you're most proud of what happened in the last 40 years. So what are you most proud of when you think about those past 40 years with Rayjon? If you have an event, if you have a connection, if you have a trip, if you have something that just touched you personally.
Well, I'll jump in because I'm not shy, but I think the thing I'm most proud of is the relationships that I have made on a local level, particularly just the interactions over the course of the many years, and how there's a saying, you are judged by the company you keep. And I have to say that my involvement of Rayjon I think, has just made my life better. And I am most proud of that. And I'm just so thankful that many, many years ago, in my capacity as youth minister at our local church, that those teenagers that came back from the awareness trips were just so inspired by their experience that it just compelled me to consider participating. And that was extremely positive experience for me. But also the relationships made on the ground, both in the DR and in Haiti. Can continue to keep in touch with a couple of people in Haiti, and probably my biggest regret is the fact that it is almost, well, it's impossible to go there. And I'm extremely sorry about that, because I put a lot of time and energy in establishing those relationships, and to see it put on, I'm going to say, on hold, has been definitely a regret, but definitely the relationships for me.
Glenn, Debbie, any?
I'll talk about teamwork. Like for me, one of the inspiring things is to be part of, a team in Canada that is kind and respectful and willing to acknowledge mistakes and to try to do better and to be dedicated to learn. But the greater inspiration is the teamwork with our partners, is to be able to be part of respectful working relationships that are supportive and that I learn from. I mean, that's, I guess that's, in terms of being proud. I'm also proud of, as I said, learning from mistakes, so that we don't try to hide a mistake. We want to be transparent if there is one. And then what can we learn from it? How can we do better? How can we ensure it never happens again? I think that's important. And I've been proud of the fact that we have been there for the long term. Certainly, we spent a lot of time in Haiti around the time of the earthquake. And what we saw and maybe learned from there was how often organizations had big programs or projects to be implemented in a fixed short period of time. So 3 years in, out, you're going to do X, Y, and Z. You're going to educate 400 people. You're going to, educate 1,000 people. You're going to do X, Y, and Z. And you're going to get it all done in 3 years. And you have, of course, the RBM formulas and all of the, but you're in, you're out. And having had the sort of opportunity to then go back and go past some of the, the programs that aren't maybe sustained as successfully when there's an artificial timeline on what's to be accomplished. And is it really sustainable? I've been pleased to see that we are more long-term. Like I think that our expectations are more realistic, and we don't, so I'm proud that we're not operating in a silo, that we are operating as partners, and that we don't have, although we have goals within timelines, we don't artificially come and go within a, sort of we're in, we're out, we're gone. We saw so many empty buildings and so many projects that came from, we're going to build a school, we're going to do this, we're going to, and then, those things were constant reminders to us of what is our role, what is our footprint. And we don't want it to be a negative one. We don't want to leave empty buildings behind. Not to say that we haven't participated in things that, that we could have done better. But so those learnings from mistakes of our own and mistakes of others, and being willing to be there for the long term. Not to say that we don't have, the need to have exit strategies. I'm not saying that, but,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. I don't know if Glenn, you have anything you want to add? I don't want to.
Sure. A couple of things. I guess number one, and I think and actually both Debbie and Joanna said this, is our relationship with our partners is just really amazing. And along that line, it was pretty humbling when Debbie and Allison and I were in CAP, and we were asked to go to a meeting, and completely unannounced, we didn't, where one after another of the participants stood up and thanked us. And it was, and there were tears, and it was really emotional. It was quite amazing. And then maybe just on a personal level, I mean, I've been involved in a few medical things over the years, which has been, I was involved in bringing a young boy back to Sarnia who had a severe burn and was operated on by our plastic surgeon with really amazing results. But it was a learning too, because also just how he was able to enter back into his society in St. Mark. Involvement with the earthquake. I was involved with a surgical team from Texas with a huge collaboration, and I really think we helped a lot of people. On the other hand, a kind of a negative experience, I don't know, but I think possibly it wasn't, was we brought a young man back for heart surgery, but it turned out that he also had kidney failure. And so at the end of the day, we realized he was dying, and he had a comfortable death in our hospice, which would not have been comfortable if he was at home. And even the fact that Sarnia sort of opened their doors to him. I mean, he shouldn't have been allowed in our hospice because he didn't have an OHIP. He wasn't paying, and I mean things like that. But even in our first case, without getting into this too much, neither the doctors nor the hospital charged for the care, as opposed to oftentimes when they get into the academic center, if you're at London or Toronto General, they treat foreigners and charge huge amounts of money. And people go on these, $1 million fundraising campaigns, and we didn't have to raise any money for Annius. Yeah.
Yes, that's the heart of the member of Rayjon, of the volunteers, and of the people that are with Rayjon all the time. Always have a big heart. I think also, if I can think about one thing to be proud of for Rayjon, is as all of you said, just never give up, not give up. We know that at the aftermath of the earthquake, Haiti was the republic of the NGO. You had NGOs everywhere. And then, like Debbie was saying, you have then empty buildings. People didn't, follow through what they started. But with Rayjon, we know that there have been difficult times because, I mean, Rayjon started in 1986, and that's very much immediately after the Duvalier fell. And then you had all sorts of different political insecurity, instabilities with Aristide and with everyone else, and not last, the killing of the president of Geneviève Moïse and the gangs today. So, so it's like it feels unfortunately that it's a never-ending challenge for the people of Haiti. But Rayjon is there, and with the support of our supporters and our donors, of course, and the people, the volunteers that build also Rayjon. So I think this is something that definitely makes Rayjon proud to have been there for 40 years and continue talking about the future. So that's something that is really good. I know it's past 1 o'clock now. I don't necessarily want to be taking too much time of your precious time. I don't know if anyone have anything else they want to add or some questions for us. And yeah, so I think that from me, I want to thank you because I've joined Rayjon, as I said, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and it's always exciting now to see that it's been 40 years of Rayjon, and it's good to be able to learn about what happened and how Rayjon learned from, like Debbie was saying, from your mistakes, and how we're evolving and how we're adapting to the global context and to the needs of the people in Haiti and the Dominican Republic, and with the eyeglass programs as well all across Latin America too. So there's definitely more than just that. So yeah, I don't know if anyone has a final note. I know you're celebrating, you're having a sort of a party next week for Rayjon 30th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. it's a little drop-in kind of a thing with a short program, but basically what we're inviting people who have been involved over 40 years is to bring a story, share where we're having like a big timeline and inviting people to mark their spot on the timeline if they, were part of early days. And this, some of the people who are in their 80s who are, and maybe even 90s now that I think about it, who were there in early days really want to celebrate the organization. And so that's kind of lovely to see and to have the opportunity to do, because some of our, we've lost many of those older folks. And so it's good to include those who are still here and still wanting to, to be connected. So.
And to welcome new ones.
Yeah, 100%. That's 100%. So.
Good, good. Well, happy anniversary to Rayjon. And thank you all for joining us today. And yeah, so if you want, as I said, the meeting is recorded, so you're gonna be able to go back to it on our website, and we will see you for our next From the Field. So thank you and have a good rest of your day. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.